Well, we are starting a new sermon series. It's 3 weeks long, and it is called The Apprentices of Jesus, or Following Jesus Well. And as we talk about that, the main reason we do that at this time of year is we want to make sure as a church, as leaders in the church, that we highlight for you all the opportunities that we'll try to make available for you to lean into discipleship, meaning to become more like Jesus. It's the church's job to equip, right? It's my job to equip. So if you don't feel like you have the tools you need to be a better follower of Jesus, that's on us. We need to give those tools. We need to make sure that we have those opportunities and options for you. So whether it's a sermon series that's accompanied by a book study later in the fall, whether it's our Wesley groups, whether it's your opportunity to participate in a thing called The Plan, which will be on site at Coker, whether it's our marriage family initiative that we're doing this fall. There's so many different opportunities where you can plug in and grow. Whether it's our Sunday morning scripture discussion group that's just 45 minutes before this, to make it as easy as possible for you to come and participate if you'd like. There's lots of opportunities for you to participate and become a disciple of Jesus Christ, or to grow in your discipleship. Our text today comes from Mark 1, verses 16 through 20. And this is a picture of the shores of Galilee. So I just want you to just kind of get this picture in your head, right? The shores of Galilee is like a really pretty lake. It'd be like being out at Canyon Lake with water in it. Canyon Lake with water in it, which it has some more of these days, right? And there's close to the shore, not very far away. See, when we think about fishing, we think about boats leaving the boat ramp and going somewhere far away. But in this day and age, the boat would not be very far from shore. It would be far enough, like where you couldn't stand, but it would be near the shore, but not too near the shore. And I want you to imagine you're on the shore. You can see these boats, and here comes a rabbi, a known rabbi, someone who knows this person teaches Talmud and Torah, right? The Old Testament scriptures, and looking for followers. Now picture the shore. And now we see these ordinary fishermen casting nets, doing their work in the dawning light, right? And Jesus walks up and says, "Follow me. I will make you fishers of men." The scriptures tell us immediately Simon and Andrew leave their nets, and James and John abandon both net and father. There's no hesitation, no second guessing. It is pure and immediate radical obedience. Now forever, I learned what this meant, what this call moment meant wrong. And I'm going to just suggest that most of you at some point in your life learned this wrong. If you've been around me long enough, you've heard it at least once right. And I don't have it right because I'm right. I have it right because I finally heard a teacher who taught the context correctly. And the context here changes the meaning drastically. So, tell me if you were taught this way. What this story means is that when Jesus calls, we should surrender everything, and no matter the cost, follow him and leave our jobs, leave our parents, leave our future plans, and just run after Jesus as hard and as fast as we can. And that is the great and radical cost of following Jesus. If you learned it that way at any point, or ever heard it taught that way, raise your hand. Okay, good. It's a lot of us. If that's how you learned it, then the nets represent something you should let go of, that you wanted to hold on to, that you were clinging to, that you were like, no, this is mine. I don't want to follow Jesus. I want to hold on to fishing nets. But when Jesus calls, you got to let go. You got to jump out. You got to follow. You got to go. This is not what is happening at all in any sense of the word in this story. But you have to understand first century rabbinical tradition to know that. Well, I didn't know any of that until I started hanging out with my mentors. I've mentioned him before, Scott Hare. He's learning stuff from this guy named Ray Vanderlyn. And what they are doing is they are deeply mining the context of first century Judaism. To understand when Jesus says what Jesus says, what is the backdrop of that? How do I understand this? So, there's three things we're going to see in this text today that come from that contextual lens. Number one, a rabbi's call is urgent and irresistible. It's irresistible because a rabbi saying a famous and well-known phrase in Jesus' time, "Follow me," is the phrase. It's like you've taken your SAT, you've taken your ACT, you've done all of the prep work, you've applied to the college of your choice, and they have said no. At this time, Texas A&M has got plenty of students. UT's only taken top 5%. You know, whatever school, Harvard, we're not for you, right? You have been rejected on your face, have been rejected. You've put your best foot forward and been told you're not good enough. The acceptance letter that you're hoping to get that says, "Welcome to the University of," is "Follow me," in Jewish terms. Jewish children from a young age learn and memorize and can discuss the Talmud and the Torah, right? They begin with Genesis 1, in the beginning, right? And rabbis cruise the school, Torah school, and they are looking for the best students. And the best students are students who don't come up with answers. We think about learning as coming up with the answers. Learning in Jesus' time is coming up with the right questions. Who's got the right question? Our fifth quarter team is going to meet today after church, right? I was talking about this with Jordan beforehand. He's nervous because he doesn't think he can stay because he doesn't feel his best. And I said, that's not a problem. As long as your team is addressing the right questions, right? It's not about having all the answers today. It's about getting all the right questions asked that have to start to be answered so that we can pull off a good event. Questions like, where's the food going to come from? How many adults are we going to need? What hours are we going to be open? Do we need security? How many students do we really think this building can hold? Right? These are the right questions. This is how Jewish students would learn. Right? In the beginning, God. A good table would be having this conversation. When was the beginning? Who's God? How did he get here? How do we know it's a he? What do we think about that he just spoke it into existence? How does that even happen? And a rabbi would walk by and not say, well, let me explain it to you. This is what we mean by in the beginning. This is who God is. This is who we think God is and how we think he acts and da-da-da-da. The rabbi would walk by and hearing the questions would simply say to the group having the discussion, those are excellent questions. Keep going. Now the rabbi is looking for the best and the brightest to take on his yoke or his burden. If those words are familiar to you, they should be. Jesus, as a rabbi, later will say, come and follow me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. It has nothing to do with ox. Has nothing to do with pulling a cart. How many of us have heard that scripture taught that way? Has nothing to do with that. That is what the rabbinical teachings were considered. A good rabbi in Jesus' time has the most complicated burden, the most complicated yoke, and a student was looked for based on if they thought they could handle the most complex teachings. And those students were chosen first. And everybody knew that the best rabbi is Rabbi, we'll just make it me, Reese. I mean, why not? I'm in the front. I get to make it whatever I want. Right? It's Rabbi Reese. Rabbi Reese's teachings are so complex and so insightful and so difficult that only the best students could possibly understand. And so if Rabbi Reese asks you, would you come and follow me? Right? If the best rabbi asks you, then your answer would be immediately, excitedly, yes. Why? Because also the highest occupation in the first century is not fisherman. It is not carpenter. It's rabbi. The rabbi is the rock star. Right? Right now, if a Swiftie was in the room, if you're a Swiftie, just keep that to yourself. But if you're here and Taylor Swift herself came and said, would you come and learn everything I know about being a pop music icon? I will teach it to you right now. Right? Would you be like, let me check first? No. You're on a plane. Thank God for cell phones. I'll just call mom and dad and tell them what's going on. Right? I got picked up by Taylor Swift. She wants to teach me everything. And your mom and dad would say what? That sounds great. When you make your first couple million, cut me in. Like, that's amazing. That's what you always hope for, or whatever, right? This is the cultural reality of being asked to follow a rabbi in Jesus' day. This understanding, this context changes everything about this story. And if it changes everything about this story, then as this story reaches out to us in history as an example of what it means to follow Jesus, it changes everything we thought we knew about this too. Let's keep it going. A rabbi's call is urgent and irresistible. It is a call to be a rock star. It's a call to do the job you always wanted. It's an invitation to the university you thought you didn't get into. Number 2, so what is that life? That life is apprenticeship living. Discipleship is not academic in the first century. It is apprenticeship living. It means being with the rabbi, becoming like the rabbi, doing exactly what the rabbi does. The teaching mechanism for this, we learned when we went to Israel with my mentor. The way he does the trip there is this is what it's really like. You look as you get onto the bus in the morning for the tallest place you could possibly walk, and then that's where we're going today. And you're going to get dropped off about 5 miles away from that place, and you're going to hike to that place and then hike up that place, and you're going to get a teaching at the top of that place in the blazing sun, because lo and behold, most of Israel's desert, 80%, right? And you're like, oh, there it is. That's probably it right there. And we're probably walking a long way to get there. The instructions we were given at the very beginning of that time were this: wherever you are in the line, and I think there was like 30 or 40 of us total, wherever you are in the line, you must do exactly what the person in front of you does. And the very first person in the front of that line is who? The rabbi, the leader. And the rabbi's going to walk, and he's going to do whatever. And what we were told or explained to us was like, if I can't see the leader, right, I need to know that whoever's in front of me that I am following is following the person in front of them and in front of them, and they are following the leader, so that we're doing exactly what the leader is doing. Because being asked to follow the rabbi is to become the rabbi. I am to become a rabbi so I can ask people to follow me in the future, to replicate this teaching, to replicate this movement. And so I got to do exactly what the person in front of me does. I have to trust emphatically that they are following the leader, or the person in front of them was following the person in front of them who's following the leader. And here's why. If you're hiking somewhere, the rabbi has hiked this path many times, but you might be new to the team. The rabbi knows that behind that rock, there's a snake that lives over there. So we don't walk over that rock, we walk around it, just to avoid the snake. Or over there is a shepherd with sheep, and we don't want to disturb the flock. We don't want to get them confused, so we go around the flock to be courteous to the shepherd. I won't know why unless I'm the second person, right? I'll just know whoever in front of me said, walk around this rock. If I'm like, you know what? Point A to point B, people. What are we walking around this rock for? We're going here. I'm just going to go over the rock. If I do that, what happens? I get bit by the snake. Simply because I stopped following closely the person in front of me. The rabbinical blessing at this time was this. If like, think of West Side Story, right? Like, Rabbi Group A comes up on Rabbi Group B, and it's like, oh, here comes Reese's group, The way they met each other wasn't like, so, how tough is your teaching? I bet your teaching's not as complicated as our teaching. What they said to each other as a blessing was, may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi. And may you be covered in the dust. And may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi. And what that meant was, I hope that you are following him so closely and so well that the very dust from his feet kicks up and covers you. That there's no gap between you and that teaching. That there is complete closeness in following, right? Discipleship is apprenticeship living. It's not just picking up the book and reading it or reading the Bible study. It is learning how to become like, be with, become like, do what Jesus does. Number 3, disciples make disciples. The word for disciple at this time is talmidim, right? If you're going to be a follower of a rabbi, that you're a talmidim. Will you come and follow me and be a talmidim? A talmidim is someone who is expected to one day also have talmidim. You are not learning just to be transformed by your rabbi's teachings. You are learning to be transformed by your rabbi's teachings so that you too may be a rabbi who creates others who are transformed by that rabbi. And this becomes generational. In Israel today, they mark it by dress, right? Like this rabbinical line, they all wear this type of hat or this type of cloak, because that goes all the way back to Rabbi so-and-so, and they've just been replicating that teaching, replicating that teaching, replicating that teaching, replicating that teaching. And it's a line of rabbinical teaching. Well, that's what being a Christian means. It's a terrible word for it, to be honest, right? Because we sort of take it to mean like ish. Christian is like an ish word. Like I'm a follower-ish of Jesus. Like, am I covered in the dust of Jesus? No, but I do some Jesus-y things. I'm Jesus-y-ish. I'm Christian. What it means is to be like Christ. But it's somehow come to mean to be Christ-ish in our culture, right? It doesn't have a radical notion to it of like being so closely connected to the teachings of Jesus that you're covered in them like dust. So, when we come to this story and we see a known rabbi approach men fishing, the other part of the story you have to know is this. If you don't make rabbi school, right, if you flunked out, then you go to do the trade of your father. So if Jesus had flunked out of rabbi school, he'd be a carpenter. Dad was a carpenter, right? Now, the rabbi who chose Jesus wasn't a rabbi, it was God himself who said, hey, you are the one that's going to go teach these things, and it's time, right? Another thing, at what age did you become talmidim? When you did bar mitzvah. And bar mitzvah was around the age of, somewhere between 12 and 13, because that's when you became a man in Jewish culture in the first century. There was no such thing as adolescence. That's a modern construct. If you don't know that whole story, like that's fascinating stuff. But it used to be like you went from childhood to manhood. Adolescence didn't exist as a cultural construct. And so the way you demonstrated that you are a man now, that you could stand on your own 2 feet under the law of Yahweh, was to be able to recite it. And so your bar mitzvah, which means son of the law, was to recite Torah, the law, verbatim in front of a group of your peers. Right? You didn't have cheat notes, couldn't pull up the iPad and read it. You just had to memorize it and be able to recite it. So that what that meant was that law had come to live in your heart. Okay? That law had come to live in your heart, not just on tablets or on paper. When you read stories about what Jesus says, he's like, this is what needs to happen. It needs to be written on your heart. These words need to be written on your heart. Well, if they're written on your heart, they're what? They're memorized. They're memorized. That's a tall order. We don't do too much memorization anymore of the scriptures. I grew up in a church that did this. Like you were expected to memorize the Bible, and then you'd like have competitions. You'd come up and be like, who can remember more scripture? And like you were scared to death. Like, it's not me. Don't call me. Right? And you'd be like, Reese, get up here. I'm going to be embarrassed.